Now it's time for us to talk a little bit about design principles when it comes to web design. However, I'm not going to be taking you through a bunch of theory. I'm just going to be taking you through some quick, hard-hitting points that I think are important to consider whenever you're developing your web design or app projects. First and foremost, follow a very simple rule that I call the KISS rule. Keep it super simple. No matter what you're working on, don't try to overclutter it. Think about the most important objects and pieces of text that you need to have on screen at any given time and deliver those up first. Everything else can probably be removed or put somewhere else, not as prominent. You should also strive to have a unified color scheme throughout your design. You don't want one page to have a whole lot of blue and green and the next page to have a whole lot of red and purple. You need to make sure that everything is consistent. That way people know where they are as they progress through your project. They know where they are every time they click somewhere. They see this is the same color scheme, this is the same look, the same feel, the same voice. It's very important. You also need to make sure that you're using consistent font styles. All headings should look the same. All body copy should look the same. The button text should look the same. Everything needs to be consistent across the board so that everything looks like it belongs together. Everything has to sort of fit with one another when it comes to the web. Everything's almost like its own puzzle piece, and you need to make sure that they all line up properly so that you can create a very nice, fluid experience for your user. You should also use images that have a similar tone and voice to the overall design that you're creating. For instance, if you're creating something that is dark, it has a dark interface, dark colors, all that kind of stuff. You want to use images that sort of follow along with that. Maybe they're high contrast, black and white. If something is really happy and vibrant, you might want to use really saturated, happy photos, big photos, things like that. You have to make sure that the images sort of complement the rest of the content, because that's what images are on the web. Images are nothing more than a visual complement to the content that you create. Here are some examples of some modern web designs that I'm a really big fan of. This one is called pleaseadvise.fm. It's a podcast that I listen to, and this is a really cool website because everything is big and bold and easy to see. You've got that gigantic header up top, you've got a nice media player in the middle, and then you've got a list of links and podcast archives that you can see at the very bottom. Everything is well spaced. It makes great use of the white space. It has very little imagery, if at all, but the imagery that it does have matches the overall look and feel of the entire site, making it a really cool one-page design. Here is another website that I'm a big fan of. It's called Array, and this is a WordPress theme shop. Everything on this page is very subtle. It's very muted. There are tiny images just sort of dispersed throughout, but they all fit in terms of look and feel and style. The white space utilization here is very good. It helps me easily flow from one section to another. I know that top part is a header, this other part is the body, and then there's a significant definition between the body and the footer towards the bottom as well. Very well done. Warby Parker is another website that I really think makes great use of white space and images. The images all really represent the overall vibe that Warby Parker has. It's sort of a hip, trendy brand that sells eyeglasses and sunglasses and things like that. And this website really goes along with that. You can see here that they have the sort of banner, the little blue strip across there indicating that it's winter time. But other than that, you really couldn't tell what season it was that you're viewing this website on. That's because everything is just very clear, cut and dry, very black and white, almost newspaper-ish, and I love that. Another one that I like is Square, and Square is a mobile payment system. The only thing I don't like about this site is the fact that it's got a lot of dead space around the outside. The website is not 100% width of the browser. That can be somewhat distracting for some people, but in this case, I think it's meant to draw your attention in to the center here because they do have a lot of white space on this website, but they also have some serious call to action. You can see the big blue button at the top. That is very much in contrast to the wood grain that surrounds it. Then they have that big red strip there where you can donate to World AIDS Day, right there, really big across the top. They've also got their products showcased on screen, really big images that you can easily click on and find out more information. Again, making great use of the space that they have, making sure everything is well defined, liked items are grouped together, everything else is spaced apart. They're using a unified color scheme. You can see the same blue up top in the Get Started button as you can the little strip across the headings on some of the ones at the bottom. Also, the link colors are consistent, and the type is using the same font throughout the entire design. Here's an example that I probably thought I'd never put in a how to make great web design video, but Microsoft is actually doing a wonderful job with their website. And I can say that because Microsoft has totally revamped it. Everything is nice, it's clean. The images on this website sort of represent the tile look of Windows Phone and also on Microsoft Windows 8.1 and things like that. There's no rounded corners or anything like that, so the site feels a little bit more mechanical now, indicating that they are also a devices company as well as software. I really like the consistent colors. You see the red, the green, the purple, the blue. Those are all the colors that are available on like the Surface Pro keyboards, things like that. They're very careful with how they choose their colors. The type is a little small for me. I think it decreases the readability just a little bit, so I might bump that up. But overall, this is a very good example of what you should be doing in web design. As I've said throughout those examples that we just took a look at there, you need to make very good use of the white space that you have. People who are viewing things on big monitors or small devices, they don't need anything to be crowded. If you are designing for a very large screen monitor, you can make use of all of that white space. You can evenly place things throughout that entire space. If you are dealing with a smaller screen, a tablet, a mobile phone, you need to ask yourself, what content actually needs to be here? Because I do need some white space to differentiate between these different blocks of content. You can't have everything that's on the desktop just be shrunken down onto the mobile phone. It just doesn't work that way. Everything needs to be touch-friendly nowadays as well. So that means that you need to have everything on your page be able to be touched with a finger because people are going to be interacting with it on iPads, on iPhones, on Surface Pro 3s, on all of these devices that have touchscreen capabilities. So everything needs to be touch-friendly. And the traditional size for touch-friendliness, quote-unquote, is about 45 pixels. So you need to make sure things are 45 pixels tall and about 45 pixels wide at a minimum to make sure that people have a touch-friendly target to interact with. There are some websites that don't do this, and I find myself pinching and zooming endlessly, trying to figure out what button I'm hitting. That's very annoying, and if you want to deliver a top-notch experience to your users, I recommend that you go in and tweak yours accordingly. I also want you to think about creating a style guide for your project before you ever get started. A style guide is something that is going to help you throughout your process so that you know exactly what you're going to use and when you're going to use it. So for instance, if you have a specific set of colors and you know what those colors are, you can use those colors correctly throughout your design. The header is blue, the footer is blue, the text is black, the links are green, etc. You also need to set up things like a typeface palette, so you know that things like headings are this typeface at this weight at this size, or the body copy is this font at this size with this style, etc. You need to make sure that you have that all clearly defined. You need to understand exactly what your images are going to look like. Will they have rounded corners? Will they be black and white? Will they be color? You need to have all of this laid out before you ever get started so that as you start to bring content into your final piece, you'll know exactly how to style it and you can get through it very quickly. You should also study the trends that are happening online. Go to the major websites online, Apple, Microsoft, Warby Parker, places like that. Go to all of those different websites as time progresses on and see what they're doing. Read industry magazines, sites like Smashing Magazine, things like that, where you can go online and you can see what other people are doing. What's the big new thing in web design? The big trend right now is flat design with big images and responsive backgrounds and videos that play in the background and things like that. That's not going to be the case in 6 months or a year. Just like a few years ago when it was really cool to put leather stitching and wood grain on stuff, that's never done today. So if you study the trends and stay abreast of everything that's happening, you can almost get just a little bit ahead of the curve and you could be one of those trend setters. I also want you to think about pushing the envelope. Just because a certain trend is in fashion doesn't mean that you have to stick right with it. For instance, what if you mixed a little bit of skeuomorphism with flat design? Is that technically breaking a rule? Not really, but you're pushing the envelope of what other people are doing. If people are doing big images, do yours really big. If people are doing video in the background, do something really crazy in the background. Just think about these things, study those trends, and understand what the impact of these trends actually are. Why are people using big images and big type? What's the goal that they're trying to achieve? Then figure out how you can achieve the same goal with something that is more eye-catching than what they're using. Push that envelope and create your own unique sense of style. If you want more information about developing your own color, type, layout principles, that kind of thing, I highly recommend that you check out my Introduction to Graphic Design course here at lynda.com, where I break it down in terms of typography, color, layout, All of that stuff is broken down section by section in that course, giving you a better idea of how to implement that not just in graphic design projects, but also in web design projects. That's the best thing about design principles. They're universally applicable to just about anything that you do.